Hello friends, welcome to a new series of videos on tricky programming question in C++. These questions will be basically covering in the object-oriented concepts and a few tricky questions. These questions are generally asked in our interviews, and this series of videos will help to crack interviews. And these questions are slightly tricky, and you will require a computer to give the answer. But in the interviews, since we'll be using a pen and paper, it is advisable to know these answers in beforehand. So let's start off our first question. So the first question is what is the size of an object of an empty class? So you'll be thinking, what is this question related to? So let us move on to programming it and understanding it. What is the question? So the question is like this: if you create an class, say empty class, which is completely empty with no member variables or the member function. If you create an object out of this empty class, what would be the size of that object? So let's figure out what will be there. Our intuition says it should be 0 because the class is empty without any member functions or member variables. So it should be 0. But let's find out what is the actual answer. So let me add the namespace of std and also the include header for IO stream because I'll be printing few logs. So in our main, so let us create the object for empty class. Class E1, and now let's print out the size of size of object E1 from empty class. So let's use the size of operator of E1 and let's compile this and let's print out the size and figure out what's the actual answer. So empty class empty. Now this camel casing we have missed. So let's compile again. Yes, now it has compiled. So now let's execute. So it says the size of an empty class object is 1 byte. So why this is happening? Let's analyze the code. So why this is happening? When we create an empty class, this one, it would be created in the stack. So it is assigning 1 byte to maintain uniqueness. So what is this uniqueness? Is that if you try to create one more object, empty class E2, this also would be created in the stack, and in the this address should be this address whichever is allocated to address allocated to E2 should be unique to itself, and it should not be equal to E1. So for this purpose, it assigns 1 byte to each thing. You might be thinking, what is the behavior in case of an if we create it in the heap? So let's try it out that also. That might be also a possible question. They might say, what would happen if we try to create in the heap? Say let's try E3. E3 is equal to, we'll use the new operator. So we'll figure out what this will be assigned in the heap. So let me copy paste this cout statement. So here we have to do for E3. So E3, let me dereference it also. So E3, which is in the heap. So now let's compile this also. So it's done. So you can see even though E3 was created in the heap, it is still occupies 1 byte. So it is very clear that size of an object created from an empty class will be always 1. So the answer is 1 and not equal to 0. So why I'm using this Linux environment, you might be thinking, and using gedit, because we'll be using pen and paper in interview. It will be very helpful to learn the mistake. This is equivalent to writing in the pen and paper. So that's why I'm using a gedit even without any auto completion or anything, to figure out more and more errors which we make in the interviews. So now we have answered the first question of the first question in our playlist video, that size of an empty class is always 1 byte. Then the reason being is to maintain uniqueness, uniqueness to that object. You can give that example, like since we are since we are if we create one more object e2, it should not collide with e1. So that's why it is assigning one byte, a dummy byte, to this object. So I'll be covering few more questions related to this empty class related, and size of operator, what happens in if we allocate int and double, and how the memory allocation is required. So subscribe to my channel and this playlist to know more tricky questions in object oriented in using C++. Thank you.